All right, welcome everyone to another 5 a.m. club. And we're expanding. So we have two of my partners, two of the favorite, two of the most favorite people I've known for a short amount of time, right? So we have the Brownsons, and we're going to be talking today about faith and marriage, something that is very important. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves, and then we'll get started with faith and marriage.
Good.
Hello, my name is Jakira, but people call me Kara for short. I am, of course, I'm a Christian. I am a follower of Christ, to be specific, and I am a veteran, an Air Force veteran. I just separated late last year, and so on to bigger and better things.
I'm DJ. Uh, my full name is Robert, but I go by DJ. Um, I'm also I'm in the Air Force still. Um, been in for just over 9 years. Uh, Most definitely a Christian as well, a disciple of Christ. First and foremost, um, I am the husband to Jakira. She's been my beautiful bride for 8 years now. Super happy about that. Uh, feel like I know her my whole entire life. But yes, and then we're also the parents to a beautiful baby girl.
That's wonderful. So I want to rewind it all the way back to you guys before even the engagement. You guys dating. So tell us your story. How did you guys meet each other? How soon did you get married? Tell us about yourself.
We actually met at a summer job in Baltimore, Maryland. So we're both from Baltimore. Um, it was the downtown sailing center. So we basically sail boats, and then we took like other kids and like different programs onto the water to sail boats. But I was learning how to do it. I wasn't um supposed to be there technically, and neither was he, but I'll let him get into it. But I kind of got connected through somebody that I used to know, and I wound up at the summer job. And that's how I met DJ. How did you wind up there?
So I had been there um, a summer, like 2 summers ago. I worked there my year. So the summer when I was going into my sophomore year of high school, that was my first year working there. And then that next year, I ended up working at University of Maryland Hospital. And then that third summer, so going into my senior year, I was supposed to be working at a credit union. And I don't know what it was. Well, I didn't know at the time, but I know today it was God. But um, something just made me want to go back to the sailing center. So I hit my old boss up. I was like, "Hey, can I come back this summer?" He was like, "Yeah, of course." So that's how I ended up there.
Mhm.
Now, getting there, my first day there, I saw her, and I was like plotting. I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get her number. I'm gonna get her information because I like her. I'm gonna have to." Yeah, she looks so beautiful. Yeah, I'm gonna had to snatch her up. So anyways, we both ended up at the sailing center after like neither of us were supposed to really be there that year. So, you know, now at the same time, neither of us were looking for a relationship either. But that's obviously
Yeah,
not how things went. So,
yeah. And you started asking for people's Snapchats and
oh
stuff.
yeah, so this is what because I was trying to be smooth, all right. So and it worked. So I was uh I was like, yeah, let me get y'all Snapchat. So everybody who was like right there at the time, they all like put out their phones and everything. She was at the end of the line. Hers was the only one I wanted, but I wasn't trying to be like super direct. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, yeah, let me get y'all Snapchat. So boom, 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 getting everybody Snapchat, and then I got hers, and then she was the only one that I was talking to. So yeah, we started talking, and we like literally did not stop until I went to basic training. Like we were talking every single day, and so of course, we ended up dating and everything. Um, and this was the thing. When I say we weren't planning on getting in relationships, I was going to my senior year of high school. Okay, and I already knew I'd already signed my contract with the Air Force saying that I was gonna enlist. So it didn't make sense to get in a relationship because literally a year from that point, I knew I could be anywhere in the world doing anything. So, but like I said, we just had a friendship, and we just it was like we just had to date. um, so this was the thing, right? Us being together, us getting married, like leading up to that, it was literally divine intervention. Okay, and here's why. So we already said we weren't supposed to be at the sailing center, right? Neither of us, but boom, we both ended up there. Now, with me joining the military, I came in, I went to the Air Force with an open mechanical job. So I could have done any mechanical job. And since my job wasn't set in stone, it meant I could literally be anywhere. I didn't even know what I would be doing. And so, against all the odds, I ended up getting picked up for the Air Force Honor Guard. Now, when I say against the odds, so because I got picked up for them, that is part of the reason that we ended up getting married because they're based in DC. We're from Baltimore, so it's an hour drive. So I could see her every single weekend. Most people can't do that. Um, so, anyways, uh, we had here about to she's about to go check on the baby real quick. But anyways, one of the requirements for the Air Force Honor Guard is one, you had to be 5'10". That was the first thing. And for me, like on my license, I still have that license. It's a keepsake at this point, but I was 5'9" at the time. Now since then, I done grown my little inch, so I'm 5'10" now. But the guy that was measuring people, he said 5'9.8". And this is after being like back and forth in my own head, like, should I go? Should I not go? Should I go? Should I not go? Anyways, this dude measures me. He's like 5'9.8". And so I started to walk off because I know I'm not 5'10". And that was the very first requirement. And so he's like, hold on, come back, come back. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, I didn't say that because it's basic training. You just, straight face, no emotion, you just do what you're told. And so I go back. He's like, I'm going to let you think of a tall thought. And in my mind, I'm like, dog, I don't know what that means, but all right, whatever. So I start stretching and everything. I get back over there, man. He measures me. He's like 5'10" even. And then at that point, I knew I was going to make it through the rest of the process. Now, when I say this was divine intervention, because one, that part should have never happened. I was not I don't know what happened, but I was not 5'10". I got selected for that. I got selected for that part of the process anyways. They ultimately took 20 of us out of 2,100 people. They took 20 of us, and I was in that number of 20. So the odds were all the way stacked against me, but I still ended up getting selected for them. So I spent 3 years in the Air Force Honor Guard, and because I was there for that period of time, just an hour away from Jakira the whole time, I was able to, we were able to maintain a relationship. And so it was during my time there that I proposed to her. I asked her to be my wife, and she accepted that proposal, and changed my life forever. So yeah, at that point in time, I was about a year into being in the military when we got married. She had just got out of high school, so she was 17 at the time. I just turned 19. And we got married on our second year anniversary. So we didn't have a whole lot of time between us beginning to date and then us getting married. Like, I had to get her parents' permission to marry her, signed consent to marry her.
So let me step in, DJ, because I got a few questions now. I have some things that I want to ask.
Okay.
So you said that it was divine intervention, and
Okay.
one, I'm gonna tell you this: I know it's divine intervention because you were in the Air Force. I went to the Air Force recruiter. The door was closed. He didn't call me back. I left messages. It's very hard to get into the Air Force. Not because of like wits. You gotta be smart for one, and then you gotta have that opportunity to even talk to a recruiter for two. And then both of you were in the Air Force as well. That's this itself is just crazy because the Air Force is not some branch that you could just walk in and be like, all right, I want to go. So that was crazy. Now, with you guys meeting at that camp, so tell me why weren't you guys supposed to be there? Because we kind of skipped over that. What did you guys mean you weren't supposed to be there?
So for me, I was kind of missing the well, it was my first summer job for one. So I didn't really know like how the whole it's like a program called Youth Works that they have in Baltimore. I didn't know how it really worked. But I kind of got connected through somebody else. So I kind of took like the back way into the job. So that's what I mean when I say I wasn't supposed to be there, but I kind of like slid in at the last second and just started working there. I reached out directly to the boss instead of going like the traditional route that other people went when they started working there.
And then for me, I had already interviewed for and got accepted for a whole nother job. Like that year, what I had originally planned was to work at a different place each summer. So it was supposed to be the sailing center, and then the hospital, and then the credit union. So I did the first two, but that third year, I went back to the sailing center again. So I was signed up already to be at a different place of employment, and so that's why I wasn't supposed to be there that year.
Okay,
Um, yeah,
I
so
got
that
you, got
really,
you.
And
Okay.
they kind of lined up.
yeah, lined up perfect.
Yeah, they did line up perfectly. So a few more questions before we get to the first topic. So you weren't supposed to be there, and then Kira was 17 when you asked her to marry her, and you had to talk to her parents. So how was that? Like, how was that going talk to her parents, and they're like, well, I just don't know. Like 17, you're 19, just turned 19. You guys are
Mhm.
young. Like, what kind of conversations were had during that time?
Right. So
So, oh, you want to talk about that?
I was just gonna say, like, if you think about it, as a parent, you have a 14-year-old, right? So just
Yeah.
thinking about like if he in just a couple years, him getting married, like you'll be like, "Are you out? Like, are you crazy? Are you out of your mind? Like, go to your room, give me your phone, because what you talking about, right?" And so, with I feel like with any of my other siblings, and they also said this as well. With any of my other siblings, that would not have worked out that way. Like, it would have been exactly what I said. Um, Give me your phone, go to your room. Who are you talking to? Why are you talking about getting married? You're a teenager. Focus on school, and that's it. But for some reason, I have no idea why. I mean, I guess I do, but my parents were like, okay, so what's the plan? That's what like, and we just had a conversation in the kitchen about what we're gonna do when we get married. And that's what they were more so focused on, just like um making sure we had a plan. And they were like, well, yeah, DJ's a good dude, and I approve of this. I trust him. What's the plan? And then they gave us like marriage advice, and that was pretty much the end of the conversation. It was honestly, I have no idea why that happened, but it was insane. We're like, okay.
It's a few
Shocking.
things that I remember the most from that. The first part was I'm about to ask, and at the time there was so her siblings were in the house and everything, and her parents just had them step outside for a minute because I asked just to talk to them privately, and I could tell they didn't know what I was about to ask because when I finally did ask the question, like I remember like the just the pause, like everything kind of just like paused, and they just were like kind of like disbelief. Um, and I remember asking, I told them that, you know, I love Jakira, we love each other, and I asked for their blessing to marry her, and like she said, they did ultimately say yes, and I'm extremely thankful for that as well. Um, I'm thankful for them. Period. They raised a beautiful, wonderful woman, um, and I have a lot of love for both of them. Um, but yeah, so that's what happened.
So your parents are married to Kira. DJ, are your parents married?
So
It's actually the opposite. My parents are no longer married. Um, no.
I
You
mean,
want to answer the question?
so uh, my parents were married. Now my dad passed away when I was a kid. So yeah, but yeah, before that they were married. When I was born, they were married, and they were married up until my dad passed.
Yeah, my dad passed away when I was a kid too, DJ. So I feel your pain. My parents weren't married, but but I do understand that dynamic. So I just wanted to ask because most of the time when your parents are married or like just your parents in general, they want to protect you at all costs and they don't take that hand off. Like Shakira, you said, I have a 14-year-old. If he was to come to me and say he was about to marry a girl and he's a teenager, I'd be like, exactly what you said. Give me your phone. Who the girl? Like,
Right.
what do you think you're doing? You're not ready to get married. You don't even wash your butt right. You talking about getting married. But yeah, I was just amazing that they gave the blessing, and I think it benefited everyone, because you guys are still married. You have a daughter now, and you are in the book, the great book. You're devoted. So I do want to get into these questions because it's important. Like I posted that question earlier, and it's something sparked in me. And I said, people don't really understand how important marriage is or understand the vows that they take and who they take the vows under. So I only asked that question, and the question was, would you allow your spouse, I said husband or wife, to cheat if you were getting $100,000 a week? Automatically, people are thinking about the money, but that tells, not calling anyone out, just saying, if you only think about money, that's putting money ahead of God, and you are never supposed to do that. Oh, my camera's moving, but yeah. So let's get into this first question. How do the fruits of the spirit apply to the marriage, your marriage?
I'll let you.
Let me go first. Okay, so the first thing when looking at that is you got to talk about what the fruits of the spirits are, right? So I think it's Galatians 5 where that's talked about.
Yes, that
All
was
right, so
good.
we got love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, long suffering, faithfulness, self control, right? So every single one of those is very applicable in marriage, right? Just in really dealing with anybody, but especially when dealing with um, your spouse. And so I'm gonna talk about love last because that one really kind of everything is encompassed in love, really. But we talk about patience. I'm gonna talk about myself because I know how I be. I know what my wife puts up with me. I can say my wife is a patient woman, and I know she is because I done helped her become more patient. And so, because I mean, at the end of the day, right? Like people have flaws, people have imperfections, and the moment something isn't the way you want it to be, it's not what you expected it to be. You know what I'm saying? If you are jumping on that person because of that, right? If you jumping on your spouse because of that, not only are you not exercising patience, but now you got to think about, okay, now what kind of rift is that about to cause in the marriage? Because I promise you, for the person that's doing the jumping, there was a time when you yourself were being the problem, you know? And I think that when we look at things from that perspective, it helps put things into perspective. And I'm gonna speak from the perspective of a husband. So it's I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but at least for this part right here, like it's my job to love my wife the way that Christ loved the church, right? And so I got to think about, man, all the times God really been patient with me because I know the stuff that I've done. I know all the times I said I'm not going to do that no more, and then I did it some more. You know what I'm saying? I can't tell you how many times that happened. But patience, patience, patience. Now, what kind of person would I be to think about all of those times I have offended God by my own actions? and then, let's say she offends me, and I'm jumping on her. You know what I'm saying? What sense does that make? What kind of husband, what kind of Christian am I to do that? You know what I'm saying? What kind of follower of Christ am I to do that? But that's just patience. I don't want to take too much time. One of the fruits is joy. You know, so one thing, right? Joy is something that comes from God. Um, it's not the same as happiness. Happiness is an emotion and it's fleeting. Emotions come, they go. It depends on what's going on. But joy comes from God, and God gives us joy through multiple things. He gives us joy just through who He is. He gives us joy through, He blesses us with a baby girl, and you just feel joy every time you look at her. She got the most beautiful smile and everything, and you do too. Yeah,
She
and
has
so
your smile.
you still are so beautiful, and I get joy from you. I get joy in being around you, talking to you, just being with you. Sometimes we just chilling, not doing anything, and it's like I'm just happy to be here. You know what I'm saying? I'm just happy to be here with you. Or we could be going and doing something exciting. You get me to be a little more spontaneous because you know how I am. But but you put more joy in my life, and that's something that I'm able to experience with you, and it's because of God. Um, talking about some more, being gentle. I think especially as a man, like dealing with other men, we can be more. You can be rougher around the edges. You can deal with men in a more direct way, and it's like it's not really a matter of feelings being involved in stuff like that. Just this stuff it just is what it is. You know, and she got to go take care of the baby again real quick.
Yeah.
But it just is what it is. Um, but dealing with my wife, I have to be more gentle. And the Bible says to treat our wives, speaking to husbands, treat our wives as the weaker vessel. And it doesn't say that she is the weaker vessel, but it says treat them like that because she's more delicate than I. It don't mean she's weaker. She has strengths where I struggle, and so it's not just about that. Um, it's really about allowing the Holy Spirit to work through me, and the Holy Spirit doesn't deal with us um, roughly. He doesn't deal with us out of anger. He doesn't deal with us in ways where it'll be equivalent to how a person will respond to us. Um, so I think that that's something that we definitely have to keep in mind. Another one of the fruits of the spirit, self-control. When you're talking about self-control, that also encompasses a lot of different things. Like I'm gonna go towards the question that you asked earlier. You asked if a person would allow their spouse to cheat on them for $100,000 a week, which is crazy. So that's almost $500,000 in a month. Okay, so millions in a year. Would you allow your spouse to cheat? Um, when I self-control, people are out here doing that for free. People out here doing that and getting nothing. People out here doing that and it's costing them. You know what I'm saying? Self-control is beyond just that because you also have faithfulness, which is a different fruit of the spirit. But self-control, sometimes that's, yeah, you made me mad, but I'm not going to respond out of anger. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe I got my feelings hurt, but I'm going to not respond out of hurt, but respond out of, okay, what is it that you might be going through? Because at the end of the day, I know I love you. I know you love me. I know your intention is not to hurt me, but I'm gonna put the way that I feel. I'm gonna put it to the side for a minute. Maybe we'll come back to it, but I want to talk about what's going on with you. You know what I'm saying? It's controlling yourself in those situations where maybe your emotions might get the better of you, or maybe you used to be in a position where your emotions would get the better of you. But it's through the Holy Spirit that you're able to have more of a handle on those things. And I think one of the things that's important to remember and consider is that these fruits are produced These fruits of the spirit are produced, which means that you can't go get them from somewhere else. It has to be from the Holy Spirit, and it has to be from the work that He's doing within you for for you to be able to produce them. And so that's going to take time with God. That's going to take time in prayer. That's going to take time in reading the Word, becoming more familiar with God, allowing Him to pour more of Himself into you. And it's going to be things where you might even have to fast, because some of us have dealt with things where, you might have had traumas, you could have even had certain generational curses that have been on you and on your bloodline, and you need to break it in order to come out of certain issues. You know what I'm saying? Out of certain patterns or habits that you can look up your lineage and see, oh man, this person had that problem and this person had that problem, and now I'm the third person in the line that's got the same problem. You know what I'm saying? And it could be different things, like it could be anger, or it could be stealing or lying. It could be anything. But when you allow the Holy Spirit to operate, and now He's the one that is having that interaction, instead of it just being you, instead of it just being your flesh, now you're able to operate in the way that God wants you to operate. And that's super important, because at the end of the day, Jesus calls us lights. First, He said that He is the light. He says that He's the light of the world. And then He goes on to call us lights, which means that the same light that He came and He produced in this world, we need to be producing in whatever situation we're in. And I would say, most importantly, especially as a husband, it's going to be in your marriage. Because again, your marriage with your wife is supposed to mirror Christ's marriage to the church. So everything that Christ is to the church, with the exception of literally being the sacrifice for sin, we need to be striving to be for our wives. And I'll say, even with the sacrifice for sin thing, the Bible also tells us that we need to present our wives blemishless, without a spot or without a wrinkle. That's part of our job as a husband. So, the Bible talks about, for marriage, we need to be facilitating holiness within the marriage. I feel like I'm going a little too deep into it right now.
No, because I do have I want to get to this next question, because it's in alignment with what you're speaking of, because a lot of marriages don't have fruitful marriages because they're not connected in that way. So I want to ask you, because you're very knowledgeable in this, what does a fruitful marriage look like versus a marriage that doesn't produce any fruit?
Okay, so I'm gonna start off kind of in the reverse order that you asked the question. So a marriage that doesn't produce any fruits, there's a few things to look at that, right? So first, we're looking at the fruits of the Spirit, okay? And keeping in mind that the marriage is supposed to produce holiness in both the husband and in the wife. If that's not being produced, then you're looking at a fruitless marriage, and you're looking at a marriage that's probably not going to be very successful. Because if you got a marriage and there's no self-control involved, you can just imagine what that looks like. You know what I'm saying? I promise you, that's going to have mountains that's made out of molehills. That's, that can get extreme quickly. You have people dealing with stuff like domestic violence. You have situations where you have people who cheat. You have people who are serial cheaters in their marriage. That's something where fruits are not being. That's a fruitless marriage. You have relationships. You have marriages where people are, they're roommates, and they acknowledge that, and they're fine with it. It's just something that they've come to accept. They wake up in the same bed, go to work, come back home, don't really mind each other too much, go to sleep. Sometimes it's not even in the same bed. Sometimes they're sleeping in separate rooms. Some people do that. Some people do that for different reasons. I'm talking about people doing that for the sake of the fact that they don't like their spouse. I've heard of people doing that because the husband snores ridiculously loud, and so it really was not feasible for anybody to be in the same place as him and get any kind of sleep. Yeah. But that's I would assume that's probably the minority of situations. But there's stuff like that, where the husband and wife, they're still actual friends and they love each other and are in love with each other. So, but no. So as far as fruitless marriages go, you have people in the marriage, they're not kind to each other. They don't like each other. There's no peace in the household. There's nobody that's looking out for the other. It's just selfishness. Um, which selfishness, when you really look at it, any reason why people divorce is because of selfishness. Selfishness is always at the root of it. And again, when you compare that to the example that Christ set, everything that he did was love, which is the greatest fruit of the Spirit. And it's also the greatest gift of the Spirit. Um, when you look at the example that Christ set, um, love is sacrificial. It's selfless. Every bit of it is. It's not looking out for me and what I can get and what I can do for me. It's looking out for what can I do for my spouse? What can I do for my wife? You know what I'm saying? Now, for the fruitful marriage, because we're going to get into that now that you asked about, a fruitful marriage is going to have a lot of selflessness. It's going to be built on servitude in every way. You know what I'm saying? Servitude isn't just, like my wife makes me breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? And that's one of the ways that she serves. Another way that she serves, though, is, she sometimes checks the way I think about certain things. She helps me stay on my toes. She helps me mind my P's and Q's. She helps me make sure I'm on point. So service, it goes. There's multiple aspects to it. There's multiple levels to it. And as a husband, now this is the thing that gets, I think, gets real critical. It's super important because, again, modeling the example that Christ set. Christ came as a servant, and he said that if I am your master and I'm serving, I'm paraphrasing it, but if I am your master and I'm serving, then you all who follow me need to be servants. And so, if I'm following his example as a husband, then that means that I also need to be a servant to my wife. And there's multiple ways where that works out. You know what I'm saying? Now we could talk. I'm gonna talk about food a little bit because I like to eat, and I'm glad I got a wife that like to cook, and she throw down.
So annoying.
I just had to say that real quick. Now I'm thinking about it, like, man, think about the food you'd have made. But but anyways, sometimes I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna cook something too, and it's just for the sake of her just being able to rest, to not worry about it. Sometimes I might cook something, but sometimes I might be like, hey, I'm bringing something home. What you want? Or I might just surprisingly pop up with it. Like I like the way it look when her eyes get all big. Yeah, but beyond that, what can I do that is helping her do what she does as a wife, as a mother? What can I do that's gonna take something off of her plate? What can I do that's gonna make her feel special and help her feel seen and heard? You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of different ways where we can serve. There's different ways where we can show the fruit of the Spirit, and it's going to show that there's fruit that's being produced in the marriage. But for the fruit to be produced in the marriage, it's got to be fruit that's produced in the husband and in the wife. And the real onus of that is really going to be on the husband, because he got to lead his wife correctly. He got to lead his wife in Christ. Now, that's not to say that there's no accountability for the wife, because one day she's going to have to answer to God for what she's done with what she has as well. And she got the same word that I do, right? For husbands and wives. But God puts that responsibility on the husband to lead his household. And so I would really say, when you talk about seeing the fruits of the Spirit be produced in the marriage, that's how it's going to look, and that's why it's going to look the way it looks.
Got you. Now, it's I'm not gonna say it's a debate, but as far as marriage goes, a lot of people have different interpretations of how you should be married. But I feel, and I don't want to be biased, it's only one way to have a successful marriage, and that's through God, following the Bible, because that's like the ultimate playbook, the ultimate cheat code. You have everything in the Bible that you can imagine to learn from it. So, in your own words, and both of you as well, what does a biblical marriage look like?
Hmm. I guess I'll go because yeah, that kind of got with me for a while. A biblical marriage. This is a good question because a lot of people, I feel like you said, they do kind of have different interpretations of it. Um, but first and foremost, Christ is the foundation of the marriage. That's first. The covenant itself mirrors God's covenant with us, right? So Christ has to be the foundation of it. As far as so you have gender roles, people say like trad wife, traditional wife, and then you have I don't want to say, I guess you can call it like boss babe type of thing. I don't know. I guess I'm like somewhere in between, but I take care of my household first. My husband and my children and God comes first. And in order to properly serve my family, I have to draw from the Lord. If I do it without God, then I'm not going to be able to continuously draw to show that love to my family. So it's service, whether I feel like it or not, it's service to my family, making sure they have what they need. A good example of this, which everybody knows, is Proverbs 31 is a big thing for women. Everybody wants to be a virtuous woman, and they focus on the actions of what's laid out in Proverbs 31. But what people are tending to miss is it's not just the actions; it's what is in her heart that's coming out. It's her love for the Lord that's being expressed that way. It's her love for her family that's being expressed, for her community, for everything like that. And I feel like that is a big one as far as women go. Now I won't get too much into men because well, we stand right here, but um I feel like that the covenant itself is to mirror what um what Christ is to us, what Christ is to church. And the Bible does say that the husband should love his wife as Christ loves the church. And people would like to hound on that a lot, but Christ also shows all of us how to love. And with love being laid out, I think you probably got into it while I was gone in First Corinthians chapter 13.
Yeah, that's where it's at. I didn't get into it too
Oh, you
much.
didn't get into it. It says love love is. Love is patient. Love is kind. I keep finding myself going back to this chapter in First Corinthians, but it's so I feel like it's so important. It is so important. Because it's not just with your friends and family, it's with your spouse too. And people sometimes um like you're living with the same person every single day. Like it can be the person you love the most that get on your nerves the most as well. And so those attributes of love is patient, love is kind, love is selfless, love is all the things, it can start to slip through the cracks. So having that endurance and persevering and being consistent regardless of how you feel, because how you feel is fleeting. You can feel good one day and not good the next day. But you have to, just like on your walk with Christ, you have to endure on your walk in your marriage as well. But that's pretty much all I have from like the women's perspective. I do not agree with this. May be controversial. I don't know how controversial I can get on here.
Yeah, as controversial as you want. Those, hey, say
I
what
do
you feel.
I do not agree with when women say that my children come first or my job comes first. And the reason why is like I know that I've been in the comment section where people are like, oh, my kids come first before everybody, before my man, before. And if you were to structure your household like that. Like, I love my child. I love my baby girl. I love her. I love her. But my husband has to, after God, my husband has to come first. I have to take care of him. If we are good, then we can properly take care of our seed. If I'm not catering to my marriage, then that the foundation of our family has cracks in it. Because if I'm not catering to my husband, then that means that I'm not following the Lord's instruction, which means that foundation, which is supposed to be Christ, then is faulty. And if we can't properly be together on one accord, we can't raise children. You know what I mean? Or even other aspects of life. We can't properly show up in those areas if we're not on one accord as far as our marriage goes. But that's
Yeah,
what
and I think that is a very controversial statement because a lot of people feel like your kids are supposed to come first ahead of any and everything. But another controversial statement is my wife comes first or my husband comes first. And why I say it's controversial is because of the act of putting your husband or wife first before God. And I think subconsciously, because we love that person so much, we tr- we do it. We do it a lot. And when you do that, that's another way that problems enter your marriage. So
Mhm.
everything is like, oh, I gotta do this for her. I gotta do this for him. I gotta do it. No, like you said, it's God, and then it's the spouse. And we
Mhm.
have the tree. I know everyone saw the illustration of the tree. God, husband, wife, children, like everyone shows that all over and over and over again. And I feel like I can't speak from a woman, but I feel like women look at that as like, well, I should be higher on that tree. But that's not the point of it, right? It's not the point of who is here and here as far as man and woman. It's just showing you a diagram of how you are supposed to look at it. It's God first.
Right.
That's the only thing you should take away from that. God and then your spouse. They could have put spouse there instead of like husband and wife, like man, woman. Could just put spouse. But I think it is good that you said that because boy, I tell you, I know a lot of marriages. Well, I ain't gonna say I know a lot of marriages. I know a lot of single people that want to be married, but again, having kids out of wedlock is I've done it, and it's not conducive to the child because now you don't really know the person that you're laying down with. That's why you should be married first and have a child later. That's what's going on. That's how I feel about it anyway. But I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, that's I'm gonna just real quick. My sister actually put in the chat. She says people think that means you have to neglect your child, and it's false. Um, which I agree with her 100%. That is false. You know, you don't have to. It isn't. This never necessitates neglecting anybody. In fact, it's really the opposite. It's when everything is in the alignment that it's supposed to be in. Everything works together as intended. Now, if you're operating out of order, you have your kids and then your spouse, and then you figure God in there somewhere wherever he can kind of fit in,
Mhm.
you won't be out of order. Like the household is not going to be operating the way it's supposed to. Stuff is going to be going wrong, and you really can't wonder why. Because, like you can take anything where you have operating procedures for doing something, right? If you do it out of order, you're not going to get the intended result. Your expectation is going to be so far removed from reality, you're going to be looking crazy, wondering why you got something other than what you're supposed to get if you follow it correctly. And the thing is, the Bible lays out the blueprint. When you put God in his place, you know what I'm saying? And I'm going to speak right now from the perspective of a man, right? As a man, we feel like, okay, the number one thing I have to do is provide, which is extremely important. But if you put your means of provision over your family, if you put it over God, something's going to have to give. Why is that? Because one, the first thing you did wrong was you took your faith out of God. God is the one who provides. God is the one who provides. Jesus spoke very plainly about how if he talked about how like the flowers in the field, they're so beautiful, right? God is the one who provides for them. And I'm paraphrasing, of course, right? He talks about how, you know, the birds are cared for by God. They don't have to plant crops or anything, yet they eat. How much more is God going to provide for you, right? So God is the one who gives the provision. He blesses the work that our hands do, and it's important that we do work, because Proverbs also talks in quite a few places about the effects of laziness and refusing to work. In the book of Acts, it talks about how if you don't work, you're not going to eat, right? But none of those things take away from the fact that our trust remains in God. And so if you're putting your source of income above God, immediately you're out of order. Then if you're putting it above the wife that God has blessed you with, who is his daughter, now you're out of order again, because now everything that we talked about beforehand about what this biblical relationship, this biblical marriage that's fruitful is supposed to look like. How are you gonna be producing those fruits if you're not there actively in the marriage? Again, something is gonna have to give. Now, and of course, the same thing is gonna apply. You know, you're putting it over your children. There's people who they never see their kids because they're out working. They're working. They're working. The Bible says you can't serve mammon and God. You got to pick. You can't serve money and God. And so there comes a point at which you're going to have to make a decision. Am I going to trust God to bless the work that I've done with my hands and trust his provision for my household? Or am I going to put all of my work ahead of my family, ahead of my relationship with God? I promise you, things are going to remain out of order. They're not going to get back in order until you restructure your life in the proper order, putting God where he belongs, allowing him to be where he belongs. And that's the thing, right? Jesus is a gentleman. He'll be where you allow him to be in your life. He doesn't force his way in. And so if you don't allow him to take the place at the head of that house, then cool. He won't be at the head. He might be in there somewhere, but he's not going to be at the head. And your whole house is going to be in disarray. If the man isn't taking his position under Jesus and ahead of everyone else in that house, as far as what he's supposed to do, as far as his biblical responsibilities as a man, the house is going to be in disarray. That's what you're going to get 100% of the time. Because you cannot take something that is out of order and create order from it without outside intervention. That's a law of physics, and it applies between people as well. And so you have to do things in the proper order. But I do want to hit on one thing that Shakira had mentioned, which was covenant. And then I'm going to be done. She talked about covenant. Covenant is the most important thing, right? Covenant, we only establish one covenant, and it's our marriage with our spouse under God. Everything else can go. God has made covenants with us, but that's the only covenant that we make, and it has to be in the order that God set for it. People look at marriage as, oh, this is a state affair. We got married under the state of Maryland. Yeah, but you got married under God first and foremost. You know what I'm saying? So you got to do things God's way, not Maryland's way, not anybody else's way. You have to do it by the way that God said. And I'll digress right there.
And he honors that too. Even Paul talks about, is it Paul? He talks about it's better for a woman to not be married so she can devote her life to the Lord. But if she does get married, this is what she needs to do, X, Y, and Z. God honors that so much that even though he wants you for himself, you've done establish a covenant, and now you have to uphold your end of that covenant.
Yeah, that is God's expectation of us. Yeah, that is Paul. I want to say that was Ephesians.
Yeah, thank you.
I got to double check.
So how do you break a covenant in the Bible? What happens to you when you break covenant?
All right. So first, you want to take that first, or?
You can.
Okay. So first you asked how. Okay. So marriage is a covenant where Um, that covenant gets violated by sexual immorality, or it gets ended by death. And so when somebody breaches that agreement, that covenant, because it's much more than just an agreement, um, you you in some trouble, um, because that puts you in the category of an adulterer. Now, putting it plain and simple, y'all want to talk about stuff that's controversial. People don't even like to. People like to pretend hell don't exist. But the Bible says that adulterers are going to have their place in the lake of fire. And so you want to talk about how seriously God takes that, how seriously God takes your treatment of his children. Um, that's how serious it is. Because last I checked, that lake of fire was a place that's burning for eternity. So ain't no escape, ain't no getting out of it. And so, you know, that's ultimately what you can end up dealing with. You can also end up that is the provision. That's the only provision that God has made for divorce. It was for sexual immorality. Now, while He did make it a provision, He did not make it a requirement. We serve a God who shows us very clearly and plainly how.
Yeah.
Oh man.
You done put the baby to sleep.
He shows us very clearly and plainly how reconciliation works. He reconciled us back to God. So it doesn't mean that a marriage has to end, but it can, and you can have a bunch of repercussions that come with that, and you're going to be laying in the bed that you made. No pun intended, but that's what's going to happen. So do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you hit on the big ones is infidelity and death, and also emphasizing the fact that God doesn't want you to divorce, but it takes two people to have a successful and a healthy marriage. Now, obviously, if you're in a situation where you're being abused and like there's a gun up to your head, like obviously use wisdom in that situation and get out of the situation. But if we're talking about like just regular marital issues that people have, yeah, God doesn't he doesn't want you to break that covenant. It takes, when I say it takes endurance, it's not just longevity, it's also persevering through the good seasons and the bad seasons and the neutral seasons. It's going to be seasons where there's not much action going on. It's going to be seasons where every day feels like a year. And at the end of the day, you still have to make sure you're enduring through that. But your question was like, how do you breach that? How do you break that? And I think you hit on it, is infidelity or death.
And I asked that because a lot of, I'm not going to just say women, but it's a lot of people ending marriages for petty things.
Mm,
Being petty, or arguing too much, or the fight, like we're not making as much money as we used to, or you're not showing enough attention, or, um, and I could say this, having relations with each other, like not having that intimacy, that is something that ends marriages as well, because we talk about infidelity, a lot of men blame that on that as well, but that's the flesh speaking. So I think the pettiness is what ends the marriage, but I don't believe that you should ever end the marriage unless it is the cheating, or like the, what you guys just spoke on. But I always say as well, if you forgive someone, if you truly forgive someone, then forgive that person, because you have the means to exit now. So if you forgive that person, work towards that forgiveness. So if you
mhm.
say they cheated, but I'm going to stay, we're going to get through this, then do that. And I think a lot of people try to beat the person down after that and feel like they have that ace in the deck. Like, oh, I could pull this out at any time. It could be years
Mm,
down the road, and just, oh, I could pull this out. You did this 5 years ago. don't forget that anytime that person gets mad. So I just wanted to talk about that a little bit before we get into your guys your honeymoon phase, because it seems like you guys are still in the honeymoon phase, and I want to know, how do you guys keep this glow about you and your marriage? Because a lot of people, you guys are 8 years in, and it's like you still have that umph, like that, like both of you guys are glowing, not just you, Shakira. DJ is glowing as well. So I want to know, how do you guys keep that honeymoon phase going when most people say after 2 years that ends?
You know what? We did hear that a lot. We've gotten a lot of advice from older people. Some we took and some we didn't. But a lot of people did say like, enjoy it now because after that first year or first 2 years, and then we heard 5 years and then 7 years. Now we're on year 8 and we're like, oh my goodness, like when does it kick in? But I think the biggest thing is, well, one, we're not just husband and wife. We're also friends, and we try to keep our friendship healthy and lively. We joke with each other, we tease each other, we do all the things that friends would do, right? We laugh with each other, we confide in each other, like we're friends with each other. A lot of husband and wives, the reason why that honeymoon phase fades away is because they don't like their spouse. People do not like their husbands, people do not like their wives. Then they go off and they talk about them to all their friends. Like, I cannot be in those conversations. I'm like, y'all don't like your husband? Like, I'm blessed to have somebody that I like. Are you okay?
Yeah, look, I promise you, my eyes are just they're burning.
But people, like, yeah, people really just don't like their spouse. And so it's something that is not, you don't just get married and that's just the end of it, and you're just, okay, well, we're married happily ever after. You have to work at it just like anything else. You have to work to continue to have a healthy relationship. You have to put, especially when you start having kids and stuff, you have to put in the effort to continue to date, to continue to be romantic. I just got flowers this morning. Like, I came downstairs and there was flowers, and I was really happy about that, by the way. Thank you. But you have to continue to date each other. You have to continue to be friends with each other, to laugh with each other, to be intimate with each other, and just not letting anybody come in between that. Because as soon as other people start getting into their opinions on your covenant and what you should do, and they get in your head, then you start looking at your spouse differently. And hey girl, sorry. You start looking at your spouse differently, and it could uh cloud your judgment on them, and cloud the way that you view them. That's what I think. What do you think?
100% everything you just said. Um, yeah, I'm gonna repeat some of what you just said, just because it's so true. Like, you're my best friend. I like to, like, I joke around a lot, you know. Um, I done said stuff about, like, you know, I'm gonna think about getting. I think I'm gonna get my wife some flowers, and I'm gonna get my girlfriend some chocolate. What you get this morning?
Flowers and chocolate. I did get chocolate. I did chocolate before breakfast.
I know you had your chocolate before breakfast, but but yeah, she's my wife. She's my girlfriend. She's my best friend. You know, she's my lover. She is all the things that a person can be for another person is who she is to me, and it's who I try to be to her. And so, you know, yeah, people did talk about, yeah, that honeymoon phase, that cupcake phase, whatever pretty little cute thing they wanted to call it. They said, yeah, that's gonna last for, you know, you're gonna be in it for 2 years, and then you're gonna go back to, you're gonna be roommates. And maybe somebody somewhere was rebuking that, but that's not what happened. No. And it's not to say everything has been perfect and like rainbows and unicorns all the time. No, it hasn't. Like, we've had our issues, you know, and there's times where, you know, we still do have things like, you know, we disagree on and stuff like that. But how do we come back together after that? You know what I'm saying? How do we work through it together? That stuff is important. And again, going back to what we talked about earlier, are the fruits of the spirit being produced even in those moments? Are they showing through in those moments? Because that's going to help a lot. Fruit of the spirit don't mean we ain't going to disagree. It don't mean it won't be an argument. It don't mean that. It doesn't mean any of that. But what it does determine is how are we going to get through it? How are we going to operate in the midst of those things going on? And when you can allow God to work through you, even when your flesh don't want to do what you know is right, that helps a lot. But I would say, with that aside, definitely continuing to have a friendship. Continuing to date. I chase her around the house. I like to pop up on her. We just have fun. You know what I'm saying? We just have fun.
By the way, my fight, flight, or freeze is fight, and he still like to play.
Yeah, I still pop. If so, she didn't square it up. She'll square it up. Yeah, because if I like pop out on her hands going up. I might have caught an accidental couple times. And you know what? It was worth it because we having fun. I'm gonna pop out on her and scare her, and we just have fun. Like we just enjoy each other. Like I remember, like one of my favorite memories when we used to live in Colorado. One day we just went out back and we had a snowball fight, and it just was like we were just two little kids just outside having a snowball fight. It was fun. Just enjoying each other,
You gotta be childlike.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Sometimes.
Play too much. Sometimes I play too much. Yeah, sometimes I do. I'm gonna keep doing it though.
Like we're gonna be 80 years old.
Yep. Yep. Chasing you with a cane and a walker and all of that. Yep. And Dominique, one of the things that you had mentioned was intimacy. And that's incredibly important as well. A lot of times we look at that from the husband's side, but that's also very important from the wife's side as well. Man, we're not the only ones that do the chasing. Sometimes the shoe is on the other foot, and you know what? We got to come through and do what we got to do. It's important, and I think something like that, people might consider it to be taboo to talk about and stuff like that. But I think it's something that probably needs to be talked about more because it's something that I hear about this. A lot of marriages lack intimacy. And the thing is, it's like out of everybody in this whole world of 8 billion plus people, she's the only one, and I'm the only one that we will ever be intimate with. And so
that we've ever have been
exactly
intimate with.
Exactly. And so that's it. Like, that's it. With that being the case, how are we going to hold out on each other? And the word even talks about that. So
that's in 1 Corinthians, I think, 7, right? I think.
I don't have it off the top of my head, to be honest. But it talks about how my body isn't just my own. Her body isn't just her own. We belong to each other. It talks about how we have to. We talk a lot about how the wife has to submit to the husband, and then I think some of the husbands sometimes just stop reading there. But it says for husbands that we also have to submit ourselves to our wives. And so, again, it really goes back to what the biblical marriage looks like. When you're doing it the right way, you're going to end up having a balance that is only really struck when you're doing things the way that God has provisioned them to be done. And I think that when you're doing that, that's when you get to have that 8-year-long honeymoon phase, that cupcake phase, or whatever you want to call it. So, I would say that's how and why we're still just like newlyweds.
Yeah, so we're going to have to do a part 2. We're going to do a part 2. Now, everyone will be doing this bi-weekly with Akira and DJ. So stay tuned for the next episode. I know we're right at time, so I want to wrap up. Is there anything you guys want to say before we end the call tonight?
No, I don't think so. This was fun. I really liked it. I'm looking forward to part two of the conversation. Um, but if you are, I would say, if anybody that's watching, if you are in a situation where you feel like you're at the end of your rope, in your covenant, in your marriage, and it has not been infidelity and your life is not in danger, then I would just encourage you to continue to endure through that, using the Lord, using the Bible, because you cannot do it by yourself. You have to draw from the Lord and just continue to go to war over your marriage. It's a covenant that the devil wants broken, and if the devil wants it broken, that means keep it together.
100%. For me, I would say a message, especially to the men, to the husbands. Um, Everything that we saying now, you know, like yeah, I'm gonna tell you what we read in the Bible, but this is stuff that we have lived and experienced. There was a period of time where I was not leading my household according to the Bible, and you could see the evidence of it. And then once I gave everything over to God and I let Him take lead, you can see the evidence of that as well. And if you are not really allowing God to take His place as head in your life as an individual and head of your marriage, head of your household, it's time to stop wondering why things ain't going right. That's the reason why you're out of order. Order things where they're supposed to be, and let God just show you how He do. I'm telling you, and I'm gonna be done with this. Sometimes, man, you put your trust in God or something, and it's like I'm telling y'all, man. Sometimes the Holy Spirit is like it's like He whispers in my ear. He's like, "Step aside, watch this." All right, I'm gonna watch. Yeah, He did something like that. But you know, you let Him take the reins. People say, "Let Jesus take the wheel." Let Him take the wheel. See how He does things. But yeah, I'll digress right there.
Yeah, and we're gonna let that simmer until next time, and that's another 5 a.m. club until we meet again. Peace.